Hi, everyone. I want to say thank you so much for being here. Myself, Anthony, Brand Innovators, we're super excited to have this conversation. Today, we are here to talk to you all about premium and practice. That's the name of the session. We're going to be talking about how brands like Kind can unlock brand performance through premium content strategies. So first of all, I want to kick it off by just saying that, we think about TV from a lot of different lenses, and television, the use case of it both from a viewer and consumer perspective has evolved over time. And so we've thought about what if TV as a channel is not just for storytelling, but it's also a stage for performance, where entertainment, culture come together under kind of one experience overall. We've seen that 70% of consumers say that the stories they see, the ads that they watch via streaming or traditional television influence what they do and they buy. And so I think we all know today that TV is a very effective, quick reach vehicle. You can buy one spot in the Super Bowl. You can reach 130 million people who are watching your ad all at the same time. But you can also create cultural moments that live beyond just the ad on air. They live on TikTok, on X, and really help to tell a story for your brand. So with that in mind, we are very excited to have Anthony here. He is the Senior Director of Media and Digital Marketing and Experience at Kind Snacks. In his role, he oversees social, digital marketing, their in-house creative studio, paid advertising, and omni-channel marketing. He brings 20 years of experience to Kind. Prior to joining, he was at MasterCard leading integrated marketing spanning across consumer, digital, social, and B2B. He also has an MBA in marketing in Fordham. So, Anthony, thank you for being here. I think I speak for the room when I say we're very excited to have you here. So we're going to kick it off by talking about Kind as a brand. I want to also hear a little bit about yourself and your role and what you do at Kind Snacks.
Sure. So at Kind, I lead the media, which includes national and retail media. So for us, we're doing, all the planning, making sure that we have integrated plans and that we're telling 360-degree stories. I lead all of our social media marketing, so that's all of our paid as well as our owned and organic channels. And then we also have an in-house design and production studio, which is great because within digital, we're able to iterate quickly on creative. So it's a great sort of asset to have to round out the team.
Love it. First of all, I guess we should also ask you, what is your favorite Kind snack?
Ooh, I love the new protein max bars. 20 grams protein, first ingredient peanuts. It's good.
Speaking of capitalizing on trends, I feel like protein is the number one headline across a lot of CPGs right now.
For sure.
So that's great. I know my favorite flavor is almond coconut, so
very good.
The best. Okay, so let's kick it off into the point of view from Kind and from a brand perspective. So we talk about traditional TV a lot. I think we're also trying to talk about what does premium TV mean, right? Because traditional TV now, it's focus on the content. The content can live on traditional TV via linear cable subscription. It can also live on streaming and across all these channels. So in what way do you believe that TV advertising has transformed? In what ways do you think it's meeting the consumer expectations of today? And in what ways do you think maybe it still needs to evolve?
Yeah, I think it's definitely evolved. When I think back, it's definitely evolved to the point that we can go beyond sort of broad targeting when it comes to reach. We definitely buy linear TV. For us, like you said, it's a huge play for reach. We can reach a massive amount of audience, but we're not buying TV in a silo, right? So when we're buying TV, we're complementing it with digital video and streaming, where we can actually target, an audience persona specifically with a specific creative to get it to resonate more. So I think like that's sort of, how we're complementing and how TV is kind of really advanced. And I would also say that, you can't really look at TV in a silo. What we find, one of the ways we measure performance at Kind is that we look at our media synergies. So, when we're running TV, we find that when we're running social and retail media along with it, it's driving both our brand metrics as well as sales, right? So it's not a linear consumer journey, right? You have to make sure that you're telling sort of that 360 story and complementing that TV advertising to get the most out of it.
And then speaking of that, when you think about kind of your overall media synergy, you're not thinking in a silo, as you just said, but there's obviously a lot. There's TV can mean many different things, and I think linear television has started to kind of evolve into being an amazing live television vehicle. I think 100 of the top programs on linear are live. We see 21% more emotionally engagement from consumers when they're watching live content. Like, how do you think about live differently or the same as other content
No,
buy?
we definitely see live as a premium. For us, it's really important to sort of find those one of a kind live events, and sports for us is very important. It indexes high with all of our audiences, as well as award shows and things like that. So I think that, live is, when you have that live captive audience that is watching in that moment, is awesome. And then also you can build a lot of surround at that moment as well across social. So, I think that we definitely see that as premium,
And then I think going into the content specifically, so how do you think about kind of brand building? What have you learned what is working? Maybe a story of something that hasn't quite worked, or you've learned quickly hasn't worked, and then you've pivoted, and I guess just how important is contextual alignment with brand building overall?
Yeah. So I think for Kind, right, when we've been able to really break through is, there's two sides to the story, right? It's we all as marketers, we have a story we want to tell and, a message that we want to get out to consumers. But at the same time, on the other side, consumers have content that they're interested in and things that they care about. And when we've been able to be successful is when we're sort of activating in that intersection of what the brand cares about and what the consumer cares about. And I think that's really, you're getting your message in a way that, is going to resonate with the audience. Now, I think when we fail is when we're not doing that. I remember when I first started at Kind, a lot of what we did was blanketing, right? We had one 30-second ad, one 15-second ad, and that thing ran everywhere it possibly could, and those days are gone. It's not about us getting a 30-second ad and cutting it down to 15 and 6 seconds anymore. It's really about creating custom content for that audience, that you're trying to get to. We have 3 personas that we go after, and depending on the mediums and how we can target, they're each getting a nuanced message, based on what their interests are.
Which is great. And then I think when you think of premium TV, I think a lot of people talk about, which I am curious your opinion. I think people ask, what is premium? And some people say premium is what someone chooses to watch, right? Because there's a lot of conversation about UGC and social and what does that mean versus kind of long form, heavily produced content. They can both mean premium in different ways. But so I'm curious your thoughts on that, but also how the intersection of the premium content and then the experience come together as well.
Yeah, so I think, it's all about, the relevancy. So I think I see premium content as, or premium TV when you can sort of integrate into programming in an authentic way that's sort of seamless. So, the person on the other side might know it's an ad, but it doesn't feel like a standard ad, And I think when you can develop, custom content specifically for programming, I think that's super important. So it's kind of like a mix of the right programming, but then also what are you running in there that's gonna, kind of just take off.
Well, that's a great kind of kickoff to the next thing I'm going to ask you about, which is obviously both NBCU and Kind are up on stage because Kind has been amazing as a partner, really innovative in the ways in which they've leveraged us as a both content producer as well as a platform in order to kind of tell the best stories. And so there's been 2 really amazing activations that we've done in recent years, one of which was Bravo Summer House, which starred Sierra Miller and Amanda Petullo and brought together kind of a story and integration around good and good for you. So I won't steal any thunders and kind of share more about what that looked like, but I'm curious from your perspective, how did you think about that? I mean, it does capitalize on the trend of bed rotting. How did that moment come up and why did you want to surround it?
That was such a fun and wild ride. But we basically, the way it all came about is for us, the New Year is a really big, important consumer drive period for us. People have gotten through the holidays and they're in the new year, they're looking to be more fit, more healthy. So us as a wholesome snack brand, we have a role to play there. So we were figuring out, how are we going to activate during New Year, New You, but specifically, how are we going to target Gen Z and resonate with them? So, one of the insights that we came across quickly was, Gen Z, they sort of turned their heads away from wellness trends and wellness fads of the past, and they really are looking for wellness on their own terms. And then at the same time, we saw bed rotting just all over social. And bed rotting is essentially when you take a day to yourself and you detach from the real world and you kind of get in bed, you might look at your phone, watch your shows, have some snacks, and really it's a form of wellness for Gen Z. So then in the room, we have a lot of Bravo fans, and right away someone was just like, "Does anybody here watch Summer House?" And then
You've read a lot, yeah.
Yeah. So and And then right away, someone just said like, oh my God, imagine we made a video with Amanda and Ciara, and, they were basically taking a bed rotting day and doing all these wellness activities, and Kind was the snacks that they were eating. So we were just like, the team was just like, oh my God, this is incredible. Can we get them? And then we reached out to our partners at NBCU, and we just made it happen, and also the timing couldn't have been more perfect, because this was, we were doing this at the end of last year, and the premiere of the new season was in February. But for us, because we needed to get in market in January, we ended up creating 2 videos. We had a teaser video where essentially Amanda and Ciara on a FaceTime call. Ciara, they're getting back into it after the new year and everything, and she invites Amanda to, come over and bed rot with her, and then we kind of leave a cliffhanger. And then when the premiere happened, we had this amazing hero video where Amanda and Ciara are doing all this wellness and bed rotting, and they're having snacks, and we were able to get a cameo from Jesse, who's on the show, and it was just, right when you thought it was kind of getting to the end, Jesse pops in, and it really kept consumers excited. We ran that throughout the premiere, throughout Peacock. We also ran this through social, and the campaign, we were really happy with it. It drove stat sig lifts across all of our brand metrics. And the other thing that we did was, in the video, Amanda and Ciara wearing a 2-person hoodie. It's literally a hoodie with 2 heads, and the whole video they're wearing it, and it added to the comedy. And as they were, they were doing face masks to each other with just one arm, and we ended up making a limited edition bed rotting kit that we sold on TikTok Shop, that included the hoodie, some Kind products, and other bed rotting essentials, and we sold out. So we also drove commerce, as well. So it was a great campaign where we were able to kind of, drive both sides of the spectrum.
And then there was also a sweepstakes component as well.
Yeah, so you were able to win an ultimate bed rotting, night in New York City at a beautiful hotel. So that was great. Yeah.
Amazing. For working moms too, maybe. Add that to the demo. I think that's an interesting point too, because I think there's this sometimes perception that premium content, premium TV, and performance can't live together, right? Because traditional homegrown performance, tried and true methods have been search or just taken kind of a different form, even the, origins of retail media. So I think it's interesting to think about that. In order to get that level of engagement from the consumer, they have to love the content and the stories and the talent that you're bringing together. Yeah. And that it's the combination of that then could allow you to sell out at TikTok Shop exactly and get the sweepstake, right?
Yep, exactly. It's really about like that. It's what the consumer cares about and what the brand cares about. Otherwise, we can talk about our brand world, all of our reasons to believe. No one's going to care. You know what I mean?
Right, you'll make them care with the stories that you tell. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Okay, so that was insanely successful. I know one of the amazing things when you mentioned on TikTok that bed rotting is a big trend. I think there's 310 million mentions of bedrock amongst Gen Z on TikTok. So I guess speaking of, you mentioned kind of like in the room, is that typically kind of the brainstorming of you're in the room, you kind of have this idea, and then it kind of becomes like crowdsourced, or how do you know when not to, align with the trend too?
So I think a lot of times I would, selfishly, I would say the best ideas come from the in-house team. I think we just, we know the brand so well, and a lot of times we might have a kernel of an idea that we then toss to an agency, and then we just blow it out of the water. So I would say it's like a mix of both. And then I think, with bed rotting, we actually had to go through a big vetting process. We obviously worked with our comms team as well as legal, because we had to prove that bed rotting actually is a wellness trend, and stuff. So it was, we definitely went through, what is it, hoops or whatever? I don't know what to say.
Legal red tape.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. So.
And then, so that was great. We also did something with Seth Meyers together with Late Night. That was both kind of a custom sketch as well as then an extension into social. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, that was really cool. This was a little bit different, where we were looking to target our essentially our parent demographic, and we were working with our partners at NBCU, and one of the things we landed on quickly was that Late Night actually resonated high, was one of the places that resonated high for our parents, and then Late Night with Seth Meyers indexed super high for our target. So then we were honing in on something, and then we started to build a plan with the NBC team around, with media across Peacock and social, and then we were able to work in this live integration into the show, and at the time we had a campaign campaign in market that was about the tension, you have between your brain and your stomach. Your brain wants healthy, nutritious, your stomach wants, food that just tastes good, and kind of sort of that combination or that balance. So they built a script around that, and it was so great. We were in the audience when it was taped, and like the audience was like laughing and going along with it all. And we ended up running that across social, and it did great. And we actually saw brand recall lift by 34%. And then we saw stat sig across all of our main, brand metrics. So yeah, we were really happy with that.
Love that. And when you think about social as that being a big part of your role, how do you think about how do you, I guess, judge the success of paid media versus organic? Like, are you looking at kind of the virality of the content as well?
We do. I mean, we do look at organic a little bit separately, but for there, it's really all about, for us, when we're looking at organic, anything we're activating in paid, we're also activating in organic. But there, it's just such a different, we're really trying to drive organic views. We might collab with an influencer. Actually, for the bed rotting campaign, the way we extended it onto social beyond what we were doing was we collaborated with Gen Z specific influencers. And they put, bed rotting content out with the 2-person hoodie and everything, so we kind of try to extend things as well. But we do tend to look at, organic and paid a little bit different.
And then with that in mind, how are you thinking about the change in consumer behaviors? Like, obviously there's different consumer trends and audiences on not just, social as an umbrella term, but also by platform, right? And I guess when you think about, are you creating different content for the different platforms? And then also just, we talked about retail media and shoppability and the interactivity of ads. Like, this Gen Z audience also has different expectations of how they can interact with ads. I think almost 50% would want to, which is a very different experience than television, even 10 years ago.
For sure. I mean, it really is about building the 360-degree story. So, we might start with an insight, and like we did with bed rotting, and and start building a campaign. But it's not a one-size-fits-all approach to content, right? So, what we're running in video and what we're running in social is totally different. And on social, we're building our brand, but we're also driving product messages home, where we're getting people to convert. And on social, influencer is really important for us, especially for Gen Z, to build sort of credibility and relevancy. But then also retail media, right? So the ideal, what we try to do at Kind is create, memorable moments across all those touch points. So you might be getting a 30-second video, let's say on video, and then, on TV, and then, on social, you're getting an influencer and like a product forward piece of content. And then when you're on Walmart.com, you're hopefully getting served the products that, are most relevant to you. And so it's really about being consistent and telling one story, throughout everything.
Do you think of retail media, as most people, when we say that, we think of it as a targeting measurement tool and tactic? Do you think of that together or separate than shoppability? Like the consumer experience versus the media tactic, right?
We look at it all together, right? Because at the end of the day, that consumer, it's part of the consumer journey, no matter where they start. You have to look at it holistically. And I think luckily on my team, we're both the retail and the national side. So we're really able to make decisions on what's sort of best for the brand, what's best for the sale, what's best. It's not like, sometimes there could be a tension between the two teams, right? And fighting over budgets and
we
stuff.
We were kind of thinking about that. I think there's that, right? When they're separate, they're kind of at odds. And there's also just the fact that video is very necessary in the retail media journey.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, 100%. Like one of the challenges we had is that, at Kind during the pandemic, we really overinvested in retail media because, no one was going to stores, right? So we went in hard on Instacart, and it was great for us, but then we never sort of right-sided our media budget. So we've gone through like last year and this year, we've really kind of right-sized our media budget because we weren't getting enough new customers. So now that, all those upper funnel tactics are so important because they're driving people to our retail media, and our retail media it's essentially more efficient, and we pay less
harder for you. Yeah. And I think when it comes to video, it needs to tell the story for the new flavor launches, the new products, right?
Exactly.
People need to understand what it is that they're even shopping for, right?
Yep.
So I guess with retail media and shoppability, which is here, but again, will evolve and grow in the future, it kind of dovetails into the future of media holistically. So is there, what are you most excited about? What would you love to see us talking about in the next couple of years?
I think it's really it's really about the connectivity, I think. I think it's sort of two things, right? One is definitely like the connectivity, making sort of that seamless transition from like awareness into sort of getting someone to really experience your product, and through some of these sort of shoppable ways, but really making it easier for the consumer. And like, are they really going to buy off the TV? Maybe, but they're filling their carts. I think that's like a step closer, So I better like fine tuning that. But I also think just continuing down this path of like the ability to be more personalized and the ability to sort of really get the right piece of content to the right person at the right time. I think with AI, it's going to get so much more sophisticated. So I'm excited for that too.
Right. And then you think with AI, the personalization, so much of it's the targeting, but is it also the creative, right? Like you mentioned, you're now like doing all the different messaging based on the audience and the channel.
Yeah. So we're using Gen AI to create images, without people in them right now. But we also actually leverage AI to test creative before it goes in market, leveraging synthetic audiences. So these are audience profiles based synthetic audiences that are based on our true targets. So we're able to get a read on like, is this going to resonate? It's a quick way to kind of test our creative
before it goes in market.
Yeah.
And then when you think about the interactivity and you mentioned shoppability, are you thinking about, obviously when we partnered, we did sweepstakes, which I think is such an amazing way to kind of get the urgency and clients, viewers acting, leaning in. But what do you think about in terms of gamification? Is that something you guys are talking about?
It is. We've talked about it. We've done a couple of things. I think we have to figure out how do we do it right for kind, but it's definitely something that I think, I'd love to explore more for sure.
Yeah. And that goes into when do you lean in, when you not, right?
Exactly.
Because not everything makes sense for every brand, every trend.
And it's like, if there's something that kind of resonates, that would be a perfect opportunity to jump in,
Yeah. Okay. So with that, my last question for you is, when you think about all the brands sitting in the room, this is Brand Innovators, I guess from all the years, both at Kind, also at MasterCard, like what is something that you think you've taken away in terms of just how to best navigate the complex media system that we're all navigating right now?
Yeah, I think it's really about, it's kind of, in a way, it's really going back to basics, like, really understanding who your customers are, who you're trying to influence in whatever way. And then, figuring out that piece of what the brand cares about and what you care about. But I think the most important thing is being true to your brand. I think the second, people are so smart out there and on social, they're able, they have no fear or no, it's just like they have like the brawn or whatever to kind of comment. So I think you really have to be true to your brand and be authentic. And as you're creating content, and just find those ways that you can be super relevant. You can't always be, but the times you can, at least for us, that's when we both at MasterCard and at Kind, when we've launched like campaigns that are just super tight and just really understanding our audience and getting them content that, helps them in some way or gets them closer to making that part. I think those are like the sweet spots,
Yeah, I think the authenticity piece is interesting because there's AI is now obviously like the biggest focus of all of us trying to figure out how to best navigate it while also balancing the authenticity that the viewer and the 100%. Consumer wants, right? Yeah, so that's a great point. Well, Anthony, I want to say thank you so much from all of us. This has been a great conversation. We really appreciate it.
Yeah,
thank you
awesome.
all.
Thank you.